Hello? Hello?
Oh shit.
Hello? Hello?
Oh shit.
So I'm actually over here checking voice. Hello?
Oh shit.
Hello?
Yourself?
It's a little bit loud. Oh. It's actually okay. Let's go to it. Good evening. Good evening. And good afternoon to everyone who came. Thank you. I won't be looking at the chat. No, nothing. I'll be only checking my. Okay, let me just pull my stuff up first. Bam bam. Okay, just double checking my volume. So, double checking my volume, double checking everything. I guess we're off to go. Let's go. Welcome to today's Read Aloud. Herscherik. Chapter 6. Smiling Face and Grief. And Black Dog 1. Let me just adjust it a little bit. Herscherik grew with each change of seasons, from spring to summer, and now autumn. It had been about half a year since Herscherik had first decided to sneak out to the castle town. An afternoon when his studies, swordsmanship and horsemanship training weren't scheduled, taking the secret path to go outside had become his routine for the day. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Herscherik handed the paper bag containing pear-like fruit to customers and put a sweet smile. On the days when little Ryoko is here, the number of customers and sale increases. You're so helpful. The proprietress of the fruit store, Louis, said in good mood. Today's sale had already greatly exceeded the previous day. Hey, honey. Louis called. Sorry. Hey, honey. Louis called out to the giant man, who seemed to be twice as tall and 4 times as wide as she was. He also has a beard, making him look more like a woodcutter than a fruit seller. It seems that everyone agreed. The man didn't respond to Louis' words. As he carried a box of fruits, he glanced at Herscherik and immediately averted his gaze and returned to his work. Just like Beauty and the Beast. Honey, you're so antisocial. You're so antisocial. A little Ryoko being here is a big help. So say something. Say thanks. Uya. At Lou's work, At Louis' word, he once again glanced at the boy, but silently looked away and began to delicately polish the fruit with a cloth. For some reason, his appearance from behind looked cute. Really, you're so shy. Hershey couldn't figure out where and how he felt embarrassed by this, but convinced himself that it was probably due to the love-filled interactions between his married wife and husband. Which remind me, little Ryoko, are you alright? You're helping us out a lot. But do your parents not say anything? My mother passed away when I was born. Since my father is always so busy, I only assume occasionally. So it's not a problem. Problem. He had told them the truth, but two adults still had uncomfortable faces. To be fair, the husband always had a frown on his face anyways. As a result, Hershey couldn't catch the subtleness of changed expression as well. Very well. But he could feel the mood wasn't going very well, and so he quickly added, but my father said that's okay for me to do whatever I want, so it's alright. Huh? Their eyes are looking at me like I'm even more pitiable child. Even though Hershey was merely talking about his own circumstances, somehow along the lines, it seems that he has dug his own grave. Hershey was troubled by the current mood, so he held out the pear-like fruit in front of him. As Hershey looked up, the husband looked down at the boy, timidly accepted the fruit, and returned to his work. Sorry for bringing up such an insensitive topic. It's almost time for you to go back, though, right? Will you come and play tomorrow? Hershey looked up at the sky. Before he had realized it, the sunset had spread across the horizon. Although he had been concentrating on helping out, there were also the fact that the sunset was much earlier due to it being winter. Like in his previous world, Japan. On that subject, it also feels that the climate resembles of Japan. While thinking so, Hershey looked at his pocket watch. It was much later than he had expected. Recently, being here was so much fun that he intentionally ended up overstaying. I will be heading home. I will be coming back here tomorrow again. Hershey rushed to prepare his trip back. Suddenly, Louis clapped her hand as if she had suddenly remembered something. Lately, there have been people I haven't seen around here. Maybe they're people from the countryside. Anyway, they are increasing in numbers. It looks like they have been in trouble between them and the patrol. There seemed to be some trouble between them and the patrol. As the public order had gone bad, be careful on your way back, okay? If you don't mind, I could let my husband escort you back. At her word, her husband sluggishly stood up. He looked like he's ready to escort him. But as much as Hershey was thankful for their care, it would be too troublesome. I'm fine. I'll be careful on my way back. And thank you for the fruit. Hershey said that he gave a quick bow to the husband and stood up. He then ran out of the store. Louis watched his figure from behind until she could no longer see it. Today was also fun. She and her husband still hadn't had any child yet, since they couldn't afford to raise one. She had held off on that too. However, since the young boy who called himself Ryoko showed up, the married couple had been a bit brighter and felt like they wanted a child too. The country right now wasn't in a good place. The king was partial to his aristocrats, and those aristocrats and the government officials were operating only for their own benefits. Even the lower government officials were ignoring the citizens' need. This was a country that was difficult to live for members of the general public. However, the reason they haven't left this country yet was that they prefer to remain this country whose security and stability persist, rather than restarting from zero in a foreign country. Besides, the imperial capital was much better than a countryside. One's livelihood became more several farther away one was from the imperial capital. Both Louis and her husband hated those aristocrats and government officials. The taxes that increased day by day cut into their living expenses. They were unable to sell anything unless they sold for a low price. If they reduced the price to sell, then their living standards would have become strained. And even though they paid their taxes, it was not like their lives had become better. The citizens believed that it was because of the negligence of each and every one of those who hold the government center. Every now and then, an aristocrat would appear dressed in a dandy outfit and not a bit concerned about their citizens' trouble. But that child seems to be somewhat different, huh? Ryoko come up in Louis's mind. He was a young boy with straight, silky blonde hair. Blue eyes that makes you think of a gentle spring breeze. I think it's green eyes, isn't it? He got jail-looking eyes. And feathers that resemble of a healthy-looking girl with white skin. His words were ambitious for his age. And as soon as he realized that he had said something adult-like, he would act delighted at something childish and dive headfirst with curiosity into things he didn't know about. His attire and his manner are excellent, which made me wonder whose son is he. It would be a disappointment if he grew up like other aristocrats in the future, walking around like they owned the place. But he didn't look like he would become someone like that. Instead, she held some kind of hope that he would do something that would change the aristocrat for people like her. Hey, I'm closing up the shop. Okay. Okay. It looked like even her unsociable husband was fond of Ryoko. Louis knew her husband was secretly bought a stuffed teddy bear and was giving it to Ryoko, having mistaken him for a girl somehow. But finding out later he would give a stuffed animal to a boy and ended up not giving it. Come on, I'm pretty sure he would love the teddy bear. I mean, he would love the teddy bear. Herscherik was dreaming of being in the middle of fluffy clouds. He felt like that there was something about this and he needed to consider. But even that, he was a thought flowing away, not allowing any thoughts to be collected. Ugh, it's too much work. It's fine if I just leave it like this, right? Right as Herscherik was about to start thinking such listenous things, his senses were revived by a man's angry voice and a woman's cry. Although he's still feeling lazy, he was barely able to process the thought that this was his place and wasn't his own room. What led him to this conclusion was that the bed he was laying on was definitely not the same high quality as the usual one. This one, could it be sleeping medicine? Herscherik guessed that he was in an abnormal situation. When he was job searching in his past life, there were also times when Ryoko's emotion states would become unstable, and there was nothing she could do about it. Every day she was unable to sleep because of anxiety, causing her physical condition to be frail. As such, she would accidentally make mistakes in her interviews, falling into vicious falling into a vicious cycle. During that time, she went to a mental health clinic recommended by her parents and received a prescription for medicine after taking to the doctor. However, she had relatives listen to the stuff she couldn't say to neither the doctor or her parents, and this resolved her anxiety. She didn't take she didn't take medicine out of fear of side effects, but luckily for her, everything went well. Instantly, she changed her tactics. She changed her tactics, applying, breaking, and opening up all of that. As a result, her job searching endeavors went surprisingly swimmingly, and that was how she landed her job. Her job. Her job. The side effects, the side, the side effects he had timidly read about on the internet were surely similar to this situation right now. Physical fatigue from dizziness, from dizziness and headaches. These were obstructing his thoughts. Don't make a 4-year-old takes a sleeping medicine. While his mind while his mind was still drugged, Herschel tried to recall the best of his abilities of what happened before he fell asleep. He had snuck through the secret path just as usual and returned to his room without anyone discovering him, of course. He held onto a book that he had previously borrowed from the library, making his alibi perfect. He had killed time until dinner is ready. So so he had killed time until dinner by reading and while eating the food Mira had prepared for him. He was thinking about what should he do to conduct his midnight, the charge in, internal audit this time. The salted. How do you say this French word? The sauté. Okay, the sautéed chicken. The sautéed chicken meat was delicious. The pumpkin-like soup was also good. The meals for royal family were left in the hands of master chef who prepared masterpieces for them every day. Leaving aside, Ryoko's cooking skills were independent in his past life. Ryoko loved eating. That doesn't make sense. I had no memory after that. I don't even remember eating dessert. In short, the sleeping medicine had been mixed in with the dinner he ate. So that means that I was put to sleep by the medicine and kidnapped her. I missed out the dessert. Well then, what should I do now? His thoughts and senses were due, possibly due to the medicine's side effects. It was fortunate that this didn't cause any panic in him. Additionally, his headache was gradually lessening, and thoughts that had been floating away on cloud had returned, despite experiencing nausea from the dizziness and headache. He surveyed his current location. Was this place a storehouse? There were several people in this large space. Right in front of him were a man and a woman arguing. He didn't know the man, but the woman was someone who was with him and took care of him since he was born. Mira. This was the first time he had seen her so shaken. Didn't you say that you wouldn't do anything extreme? I only brought His Highness with me because you said that he wanted to talk. Well, if you wanted a proper conversation with the king, then we could have gone by without doing this. I speak with His Majesty, but His Majesty, didn't he say that he wouldn't save us? In that case, you have no choice but to take this extreme measure. The argument between the two have continued to escalate it. How should I put it? It's the first time I've seen Mira this upset, huh? Possibility due to his and being unable to function properly. His thoughts strayed off into something unrelated. Mara always had her hair tied up in a bun on the back of her head, giving off a preem feeling. However, her hair now was let down in disarray, and there was tears accumulating in her drooping eye. The numbers of wrinkles have increased since I first met her. Mira was much younger than her mother in her past. Okay, Mira was much more younger than his mother. Okay, I get this sentence. This translation. Mira was much more younger than his mother that was in his past life. As such, he seemed more like an older sister than a nanny. He was the elder sister of his He was the eldest sister in his previous life, and always wanted a brother or sister. So he was happy for Mira being there and felt closer familiarity to her than her own mother, whom he had never met. From what I can tell, it looked like they had talked. It looked like they had talked to father, but it didn't go too well. You could have just talked to me, though. Hershik wanted to call out to her, but it was frustrating because he couldn't move his mouth well. Please, we have to let a doctor look at Master Hershik. Mira couldn't help but to worry that Hershik's condition from the medicine went further than she had imagined. It was too terrifying for her to imagine if this continued that he wouldn't be able to wake up. That is why Mira was clinging to the man's arm. But the man shook her off of the arm she was clinging to, and the woman with her powerless female body that fell to the ground. Ah! Should I do a more dramatic one? Ah! Okay, stop. Amira felt from the Mira's fallen form reflected in Hershey's eye among the and a small voice leaked out in front of him. From that moment, an unusual event happened inside the room. The door that had connected them to the outside literally blew away, and the hinges came off with a loud noise, together with dust dancing around the air. Let's see. Standing and surrounded by dust was a man completely dressed in black and tightly gripping the napes of a grown man with both of his hands. This definitely doesn't seem like a very spy-like. Hershik had thought that spies were supposed to be more stylish as he looked at the man, Kuro. From completely black clothes that covered his body, he appeared as though he was a dark hero. He wore a black hood, and a black clothing covered his mouth. The only visible thing was his blood red eyes. His eyes were unusually very cool, looked like they were filled with anger. He drew a large, exhausted man with one hand at nearby, who was frozen, with no idea what's happening. He let out a voice that sounded like a crested frog. But Kuro drew the man in his other arm the same way without feeling anything. Although this one didn't hit anyone, the sound of crested frog still leaked out. That's scary. Then Kuro began to slowly walk. The man came to their senses and picked up a metal rod and plank of wood and ran into attack, but Kuro avoided them with the minimum movement. He used his hand like a sword and repelled their weapon in the stomach. His movements were fluid, making it look like he was dancing. In less than 10 seconds, the three men who were trying to attack Kuro kissed the ground, and after that, everyone else gave up and rushed towards Kuro. Seriously? You can't do that, you're gonna die. No, they were like frogs, unable to move, as they were glanced by the snakes weaving his way through them. If you come at me again, I'll kill you. Kuro's tone was different. Oh good again. If you come at me again, I'll kill you. Quirrell's tone was different from the one that herscherik was always heard, so this is the tone and went below freezing. And the sentence deterred anyone coming close, and this wasn't just a threat. The next time, they will be really killed. Everyone in this room understood that. Quirrell slipped past people right in front of herscherik and kneeled down on one knee and met a gaze. The eyes that looked upon herscherik wasn't angry, but shook of anxiety, a complete change from before. Oh? Were you drugged by them or something? Quirrell placed his hand on herscherik's forehead as his hands felt cool and nice. Herscherik closed his eyes. Mr. Quirrell? It looks like it's only temporary side effect. Once the medicines leave your system, it will be fine, so relax. As he said that, Quirrell carried herscherik in his arm. Herscherik was embarrassed at his current situation and being held in a bridal carry. But now that it wasn't the time for that, Mr. Quirrell, I cannot let you take the prince. Standing up. Oh, there's something else. I cannot let you take the prince. Standing up and interrupting herscherik's mid-sentence was a man who had been arguing with Mara before, and his hand was a dagger and his eye were bloodshot. Our lives we're risking. We're risking our lives, you know. Like I care. Quirrell scoffed at the man filled with angry words. There were no emotions in Quirrell's eyes. He let out extreme bothersome sight and fixed his hold on herscherik to one hand, and before anyone noticed, the empty hand was already clutching a knife. Mr. Quirrell? Before herscherik could finish his sentence, his brain was shoved to the side. The man had rushed towards Quirrell, and Quirrell avoided him. In his next movement, Quirrell used his own knife and flicked the dagger out of the man's hand and continued with that motion. He aimed for the man's neck. At the carotid artery. What is this word? This is some kind of advanced word over here. Carotid artery. Just as Quirrell had said, he was ready to kill. Lesson when we were still talking. Something snapped in herscheik's mind. More especially, his torch of patience snapped, and the blood rising to his head blew away the side effects and cleared the thoughts clouded by a fog. Quirrell, wait! He commanded Quirrell like he had ordered his beloved dog in his past life, and patted Quirrell's head. The attack coming from an expected place. So Quirrell made a face similar to a pigeon that had been hit by a pea shooter. Even though I said I wanted to listen to her story, why didn't you wait for me? Because herscherik suddenly moved. He was assaulted by dizziness, and the end of his sentence was tapered off. Herscherik felt chill running through his body. If the blood withdrew from his head, all went down to the tip of his toes. He was overcome with nausea, but he endured it. This would be meaningless if he just collapsed here. Quirrell, put me down. You keep holding me up. I cannot look at them in the face and listen to their sides. But then, Quirrell, will you sit? Sit, boy. Quirrell showed his dissatisfaction. Should I just say that entire thing again? Quirrell, put me down. If you keep holding me up, I cannot look at them in the face properly and listen to their sigh. But then, Quirrell, will you sit? Sit, boy. Quirrell showed his dissatisfaction. But Quirrell had ordered him. But herscherik have ordered him like he would had his beloved dog. He also didn't forget the gesture towards the floor with his hand. Although he had always attached, although he has always attached to Mister at the beginning of Quirrell's name that he came up till now, the omission that could have been meant that herscherik thought of the man at the same level as his dog was possible. Herscherik thought the dog Quirrell was much more of an obedient child. An obedient child. In the end, Quirrell compromises by setting herscherik down on a simple bed and himself standing right beside him, ready for order. Okay then, talk, Mira. Herscherik calling out to Mira, who hadn't moved since the other man was knocked out over. Master Herscherik, I'm deeply sorry. Mira bowed her head. Her apology looked like it was truly coming from the bottom of her heart, but Herscherik wasn't looking for an apology right now. Leave the apology for afterwards. I wanted you to tell me why you drugged me and brought me here. Mira, you know these people, right? And I heard them mentioning that their livelihood and actual lives are on the line. And those were words that he heard while consciousness was still flowing in the clouds. He didn't know the specifics, but he could comprehend that they were driven to a corner. Our birthplace is the territory that was once governed by Master Luxuria. Herscherik opened his eyes wide open at the mention of his name that he hadn't heard in a while. That was the name of a man who gave Herscherik his motives. If it wasn't for that man, Herscherik would have noticed anything and be headed straight towards becoming a complete worthless prince right now. Master Luxuria passed away, and a new lord had come to our land, and that man is Count Grimm. This was also the name Herscherik knew. He took the opportunity left by Count Luxuria's death penalty declaration. It could be had said that he was one that who drove Count to such. That man doing whatever he wants to Master Luxuria's territory. The man Quirrell tried to kill his mouth. Wait, God, what is this word? The man Quirrell tried to open his mouth. Everyone from that territory believed that Count Luxuria sold out his country or such act. Their lore was just, and at the same time, he treated people as precious as his family member. If there was a famine, he would open up the food reservoir and share the hardship together with everyone. However, after the incident that took his wife and his child away, Count Luxuria changed into a different person, haunted by something that kept him investigating. And during that time, citizens repeatedly saw his face filled with distraught as he came and went into all different directions. As months passed, they were informed that he had sold out the country and given a death penalty. And then a new lord would show up. Count Grimm was a complete opposite of Count Luxuria, the lowest and the worst lord and the citizens had ever had. He collected more taxes than the one established by the country. Also sold, to line his own pocket, all the reservoir food Count Luxuria prepared in case of famine. Sure enough, the weather turned worse. The famine plagued the territory. But not only the lowest and the worst lord not lower the taxes, he hired thugs to forcibly collect them. Not even 2 years have passed, yet many people have lost their way. I don't even know if the elderly and sick could make it past this year's winter. That goes for my own parents as well. Mira softly murdered. Since the beginning, the territory of this country had a poor land. Food was hard to grow, and the climate led to misfortune. Dilapitation happened in a blink of eyes. In a blink of eye, I received a letter from my parents. Went into contact with my cousins and immediately appealed to the situation to His Majesty. However, Father didn't act. Yes, Mira Mira bit her lips shut. The color of despair was dark in her expression. It's not that father didn't act. He couldn't. Hershey easily guessed that his father's circumstances, just like the Count's, he couldn't save them. However, the complaints from the citizen wasn't enough for proof. As long as there wasn't concrete evidence, his father couldn't move carelessly. But this is why Hershey studied, learned how to read and write, snuck into the royal castle, and to conduct his unofficial audits. This was all to obtain inescapable evidence. As long as there were proof, there would be the trump card. His father could banish those tyrannical aristocrats who act like they run the country. However, the main cursive and the group had long ruled over the royal castle for a long time. So long didn't leave any traces of single definite proof inside the castle. Or maybe they hid it so skillfully that even themselves couldn't find it. Although one could find numerous suspicious aspects, none of them were conclusive. Nevertheless, there was no way Herschel was going to give up and admit defeat, because he didn't take any measures. His family, his friends, and himself, not family, his father, his family, himself, and even the citizens would be in danger. Herschel, who had no magic, no physical training, and no one to support him, had to do this. The only thing that Herschel could do was to search where he could use his skills from his past life and financially support the country. These people were fundamentally the same as himself. He wanted to protect those dear to them. It was just that they failed. Their execution. So he decided to adopt me. One, and threatened father. Herschel let out a deep sigh, amazed at these people who remained silent. Even if you did such thing, father couldn't act. You know, if anything, it will be your position get worse. You cannot complain about you and your entire family receiving death penalty for the sin of treason going against the country. This was a sin to lay their hand upon. It didn't matter for what reason. They kidnapped the prince and the royal family, even if it was the only plan to do so. Doing such thing to the royal family that rules the country, even a child would know what was the outcome of this. I understand your situation. Give me some time. Herschel surveyed the ones around him. He looked at each of those silent and moving people in their eyes and nodded. I will try to do something by the winter. To those words, not only did Mira and the Fuchs from Count Luzaria's territory his eyes wide open, as well as his Coral. Those words weren't those words of a young... Can I just say that again? Oh my god. I will try to do something by the winter. To those words, not only Mira and the Fuchs from Count Luzaria's territory eyes wide open, but Coral as well. And those weren't the words a young child would say. And this was only Coral who noticed a slight odd in his words. The boy who usually referred himself as a boy changed into a feminine way of addressing himself. So that means that he would usually address himself as Bokuwo. Boku wa ne? Boku wa ne? Boku wa ne? And then when he speaks seriously, he will go watashi. Watashi wa. I think that's to switch into a more like adult light. That's an interesting. You know, I would gladly read the original Japanese one, but my Japanese reading skill isn't that good. But I could have like a slight. I had a like idea what the original was saying. How about we move on? I promise Count Luzaria. What Herschel pulled out from his breast pocket was an old, beautiful silver pocket watch he has received from the Count. All those who live in his territory recognized it. The Count, that deserved respect and love, always carried and treasured it. Master Luxuria, someone whispered, and tears overflowing from everyone else's eye. Their beloved and respected Count was no more in this world. Herschrik's beloved family wasn't around. I can't. I'm getting a lot of tongue tied. The Count's beloved family wasn't around either, and now the land and its people left behind were being oppressed by a tyrant. The reality was weighing heavily on their chests. Trust me, Herschrik said, as the resolve that he's had when he received Count Luzuria's pledge, the well in his eyes. The seven princes returned that night to a noisy royal castle. The first one to discover the prince and his nanny was the main gatekeeper. Even though her hair was let down in a mess, the nanny returned with the prince in her arm, guarded with a gatekeeper as he let her in. Receiving the news, the king ran out without listening to his retainer telling him to stop. He tightly embraced the staggering youngest prince. The king, mostly lately, didn't get any rest the night, as his face was pale. According to the nanny's testimony, this is what happened. Someone invaded in their palace and kidnapped the seven princes, and the nanny was beside him. They were taken to a hiding place, and luckily, seeing the opportunity, the nanny rescued the prince and escaped. Later, someone from the cabin in a castle town, a little bit away from hiding place in which they were confirmed had taken evidence, was there, making it impossible for a criminal to be arrested. In case of the kidnapped youngest prince was closed with a miraculous return. Herschrik. Okay, yeah, I think I said it. Part 3. Herschrik sat on his sofa in the middle of the dimly lit room and gazed at the flames in the fireplace. After spending a whole day in his room by himself, it felt somewhat vast. He let out a small sigh. I lived by myself before, so this should be normal for me. But unexpectedly, it looks like I couldn't stand being alone. Herschrik noticed that he had been spoiled by Mira a lot more than expected. Letting out a bitter laugh, he thought back to when he returned to the castle. After his return, his father persistently yet didn't tell him the truth. If he did, then those people, as well as their family, would receive death penalty for kidnapping the prince. My stubbornness wasn't inherited from my mother. He had claimed that before he realized what happened, he was saved by Mira, so he didn't really know anything. His father hung his head in murder and resignation. You're right. Herschrik was deep in thought about his past. But in this room where he was supposed to be alone, he was greeted from behind. However, Herschrik didn't move and continued to stare at the flickering flame in the fireplace. He rubbed the pad of the pocket watch and unconsciously as he answered, I caused you some trouble, haven't I, Mr. Coral? I'm sorry. He sensed the presence behind him and tensed his shoulder. He couldn't turn around. It's not like you need to apologize or anything. Just Crow is fine. Really? Then you could call me Hirsch. Herschrik tilted his head to the side, revealing a smile. The image of his beloved dog. Coral appeared in his head, but he couldn't say anything. Coral, you're really a master spy, aren't you? I was surprised. Thanks to Coral's appearing, the incident was officially resolved, fabricating another location as their hideout in Wood of Place, and allowing the folks from Count Luzuria's territory to escape the imperial capital, all thanks to him. Coral was surely the master shown by his ability. From the glimpse of his fighting skills to the place Herschel was kidnapped it, and how he managed to sneak into the inner palace despite how strict the security had become now. Really, thank you. I don't have anything on me right now. I'll reward you soon. I'll be waiting without I'll be waiting without getting my hopes up. But are you really going? Hershik knew that Cora was probably listening to his request to his father from somewhere, and he looked around the area where he held the button and opened the pocket watch. The portrait of three people that were appeared. The people who were the people these three cared about are in trouble. There's no way I wouldn't let this to be abandoned. I'm definitely going. Hershik answered full of determination. Previously, Hershik had made one request to his dejected father. Since Mira was exhausted from this incident, I want to allow him to come to her hometown, and I wanted to be there to escort her since I'm grateful for what she did. However, Mira's homecoming was a pretext. His true goal was to go there to the territory and obtain evidence of injustice. This might be difficult for him and his childish physique, but if he didn't do it, there wouldn't be the victim of property. It will be victim of property. It will be victims of poverty this winter. His father was against allowing him to leave the imperial castle. However, Pershing's resolve couldn't break. The parent and child were trapped in a stalemate. So Luke, the butler, quietly watched beside the king and offered a proposition. Your Majesty, how about we have a primary butter? How about we have a primary butter accompanying a primary butter accompany Master Hershrik. I think it's about time for one to be necessary, so he brought one with him. So if he brought one with him, he should be fine, no? The king knew that his butter, black butler, okay, butler, this butler. The king knew that his butler had a look that says, "Don't worry, don't say such unnecessary things." But the king threw his butler a look that says, "Don't say such unnecessary thing." But the butler didn't. But the butler pretend he didn't notice. A primary butler? Hershik put his head aside. He studied as much as possible. But this time, he realized that there were still many of his country's customs he didn't know. One reason for this was those kind of things didn't fall into his interest. Furthermore, his mother, who was supposed to teach him his customs and conventions, passed away, and his father, swamped with continuous work, had also little contact with his prince and princess siblings. So there were no way he could know everything he needed to know. To simply put it, a primary butler is a butler who works not for the country, but for the sake of a single aristocrat, akin to a retainer, say. Luke explained to Hershrik in an easy-to-understand manner. Each primary butler was exclusive butler, assigned to only one single prince from the curtain and the former royal families. The primary butlers pledged their allegiance to their lord for the rest of their life, if done poorly. If done properly. I don't think the word poorly fits the context here. Anyways, that's first chapter 6. Oh my god, my throat feels dry. I stutter a lot today. Sometimes reading and speaking is just two completely different literature. It's too difficult. I hope my reading improved. At least my reading time improved, right? It's like 49 minutes. Oh well. I guess I will read chapter 6 some other time when I have time. Anyways, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. And goodbye. Woo.